Hey, this is Brandon McManus, Denver Broncos Super Bowl champion, and you listen to The Scoop on OwlScoop.com.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to The Scoop. This is Season 5, Episode 16. I'm John DeCarlo, Graham Foley, Sam Cohn with me. Kyle Gauss is back in Wisconsin for work, not here. So
snowy up there.
Very snowy.
Kyle means I get a mic stand, by the way.
Yeah,
thanks.
A mic stand. We'll get you a mic stand. We can say whatever we want about Kyle. He'll be quick to listen and complain.
That's exactly right.
You guys have any airing of grievances about Kyle Gauss?
I think there's too many that I can't get them all straight right now. So I'm just going to say, I miss Kyle.
I don't think I know Kyle well enough to rip him apart on a podcast when he's not here.
So, as Fran Dunphy would say, he's a good human being. Very snarky. Smart guy. Soon to be a father, but...
I did not know that.
Oh, yeah.
Kyle, if you're listening, congrats.
Yeah, there you
go. Yes.
In January,
January 10th, I believe the due date is. So
he tweeted out that he was having a baby and said, I can't wait for him to learn Excel. And without adding Microsoft Excel's official account followed him, made a graphic for him that said congratulations. And said
Actually?
And said his first word will be spreadsheets. Or data. No, his first word will be data.
That's awesome.
Unbelievable.
That's too funny.
Yeah.
Very on brand.
Tremendous. Was that a couple months ago? In the summer?
It was at the beginning of the fall, I believe. So sometime like September or so.
Yeah, we have a pre-packed show for you. We'll obviously be talking about Temple's win over USF down in Tampa. What's to come this weekend against Tulane. If you're a Temple sports fan, be interesting to hear from people who are going to try to, I don't know if you can do double duty. You'd have to leave the football game around halftime if you want to get to...
Yeah, even then.
Not a short drive up Broad Street, or you get on, I don't know, whatever Google Maps would tell you to do to get from the link down to LaSalle. I guess they could not get the game moved. I don't know if Temple tried to get the game moved, if they tried to get LaSalle to move the game. But football at noon, basketball at 2 p.m. Mm-hmm. So Sam will be at the LaSalle game for us. I will not be there for either of it because I promised my wife I would go to the Westminster Dog Show with her. And
unreal.
Hey.
I didn't know. You should be the one who's most glad that Kyle isn't here, because while he does have a significant other and gets that,
Kyle was already giving me grief about it and saying of all weekends you picked this one. But hey, love Temple sports, love doing what I do. Also got to spend time with your wife. Awesome. And hey, and then when you guys are watching it on Thanksgiving, okay, I was there. You probably won't care. I wouldn't care.
That is cool.
But we got a lot to get into.
I'll put money on it.
What's that?
Tell us who wins ahead of time. Give us the insider information.
Some prop bets? Yeah. So we got a lot to get into. A lot of football, a lot of basketball, plenty of mailbag questions. But a cool thing for this week's show, we're able to get Colin Thompson back on the show with us today. Former Temple tight end, NFL tight end, soon to be XFL tight end. And he's going to give us his perspective here on a little bit of everything. Thanksgiving, what's ahead for his XFL career, what he saw last week down in Tampa, and a whole lot more. All right, so it's been way too long since we have had this next guest on the show, Colin Thompson, former Temple tight end, former NFL tight end, podcaster, a businessman, molder of young men. He's been coaching football in Cape May. Not much he hasn't been doing. Now he's going to be embarking on his career in the XFL. Back on the Scoop with us this week. Colin, thanks for joining us, buddy. How you doing?
I'm doing great talking to you guys. Love being on the show. Love doing our little pregame videos we do with the home games down at the link. Excited for another game this weekend. Tulane at noon kickoff, which is a favorite of mine. I'm sure for yours as well, gentlemen. But excited to get back after a Temple football win and talk to you guys as always. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, no problem. I'm actually not going to see you on Saturday. I suppose I'm going to be made fun of for this. You're going to see Kyle. Graham, I told you about this. So for the past, 4 or 5 years, my wife, one of her best friends comes up and they go to the Westminster Dog Show out in Oaks. And she said, one of these years, I want you to come with me. I was like, it just always falls on a Saturday when there's a Temple game. Now, Temple football and Temple basketball, and we're going to be spread thin. And I'm not going to be there because I'm going to be out at the dog show. I love dogs, but I'm fully expecting to be lit up for this. Or maybe not.
I had no idea. That's amazing. I love that.
I mean, yeah. No, sorry. I don't know. I mean, I'm not upset with you. I understand there's commitments that we make to our significant others that coincide with our passions and our love. If you love dogs and it's going to make your significant other happy, then, hey, sometimes you've got to roll with the punches. You're going to miss a Tulane Temple game. You're going to miss little Temple hoops, but it's not the end of the world. There'll be plenty more of those.
That's a measured, mature man right there.
I can't make fun of you now after that answer. That was such a good answer.
Colin, I think I told you this. The first time I interviewed you after you had transferred up from Florida, and I got you on the phone, and I think I told Matt Rule, I said, I talked to Colin on the phone. He sounds like a future coach. Like, he sounds like he's – how old were you when you transferred from Florida to Temple?
That was 2014. I was 19 or 20.
Yeah, I said he's like 19 or 20 going on like 35. Just sounded – he's got the mature voice and a measured take on commitment. I like it.
Yeah,
well, thank you. No, I mean, I've learned my lessons just like the rest of us, and
leave it at that.
I'll leave it at that. But no, Matt. Speaking of Matt, he's in my ear about coaching a lot. I'm very blessed to have that because he's a mentor, of mine, and a guy that is going to be probably in the NFL next year, I would assume, with all the things happening around the league now.
Mm-hmm. Let's lead off with that. Actually, I didn't have that on the script here, but would you, when playing is done, would you ever want to get into coaching? I know, like, sometimes fans automatically assume, this guy's going to coach, this guy's going to coach, but then you talk to some players and they're like, man, I appreciate the question, but it's a grind, and you don't just start off in some plush, high major D1 job or like big NFL spot. Would you consider it?
I would if the situation was right, but I don't know. For coaching, you have to sell your soul, and there's a commitment too that comes from the other side of it, and with the significant other, with your family, with your friends. You're just not going to see these people anymore. And I used to think, oh, cool, like the coaching's great, and I have passion for the game, and I know the game, and I love everything about it. But you don't spend any time with your family. I don't think people really truly realize that. You're off 2 weeks in the summer. And then you have, like, I would say a week in the summer where you have to be at the facility because that's what your 1 week you sign up for. So it's like 3 weeks off and then 1 week you have to be in the facility. And then the rest of the time, you're 6 to 7 days a week. Saturdays in the off season, you're doing recruiting visits. Kids are coming to visit schools. You're driving families to the airports on Sundays at 1 o'clock in April, instead of being with your family. So it's a significant time commitment for what you're going to do for football. I love football. Am I willing to make that sacrifice? Yes, but hopefully I have to play long enough. I can play long enough where I jump into a higher role as a coach, maybe a full-time role instead of a graduate assistant of some sort. But it's a serious commitment that I don't really think people in the outside world understand, and I don't expect them to because they're never in the buildings to see how these coaches work. I mean, some of these coaches, when the games end, they go back to the facility, break down the film, because when Sunday happens, they have to start breaking the film down for the next opponent. So there's no like, hey, Saturday night, there's your night off. And again, it's not all about the time off factor. I don't want to sound here like I don't want to work, but you're making a serious lifestyle commitment that you're changing your family for forever. There's a coach in the Temple staff last year that I know personally, and he since moved on from Temple. He's only seen his son play twice in his life, and he's a college football player. No. All levels of football. I don't know if I'm really to make that sacrifice, but we'll see. If you get with the right coaching staff, you get with the right situation, then it's the right for you. But again, you're tying your career onto a coach who could be fired tomorrow, and even though you're doing great. So it's a tough thing, but it's something I would consider. I just said a bunch of negatives. There's a ton of positives to it. I do love football. And I do love the coach, so we'll see. That was a long-winded question, but there's a lot of things that you could bring to light about the coaching lifestyle that is just really unhealthy.
Now, Colin, switching gears to your current career, the XFL is coming back in the spring, and you have signed with the Tampa Bay Vipers. First of all, how do you feel about that, getting back into football, professional football? It's a great opportunity for you. And what kind of sense do you get about the league? When does it start, and is it going to be a little bit different than the last time around with the XFL?
Yeah, speaking of football, I love the coach, but my true passion is playing. So I had some experience coaching this past year down in Middleton Middle School, molder of young men. and ladies too. We have three girls in the team. But to get back to play again is awesome. I'm ecstatic. I can't tell you guys enough. I got drafted by a team in the place that I wanted to go. Mark Trespin's the head coach down there. The old pro-style offense they ran in Chicago. Now he ran something different in CFL, but that's just a CFL. But excited to get down there, really am. Like I said, it's a location I want to be. I have a lot of family and friends down there from my time at the University of Florida. There's plenty of Temple people down there, too. Nonetheless, really excited to have the opportunity down there. I think the XFL, from everyone I've talked to, is going to be much better than it was before. I think the AAF fell on the sword a little bit for the XFL, where there's going to be some learning curve. The learning curve was already handled by the AAF. Now, the financial side was taken care of by the AAF, but all the little things operationally, what it takes to run a franchise is a lot. You have to have housing done, meals done. There has to be a facility for you to practice. There was teams in the AAF that were getting on buses to go lift at Planet Fitness with normal people.
Wow.
60 football players are walking on the Planet Fitness and they're walking out the back door at the end of it. Like, it's just, what is the organizing things off the field is the challenge. And there's a lot of AAF people involved in this XFL. That's why I think it'll be successful. One, but two, the money backing, like I just said, with Vince McMahon, with WWE. So very organized thing. Everything we've got has been organized. I think they're coming out with some new rules. They're going to be different. I don't know the rules yet, but I'm assuming they have to do with special teams and some similar things they did with the AAF. So I'm looking forward to it. Like I said many a times now, I was down in Tampa, which we'll talk about the USF game, and there was several personnel from the Vipers down there, the XFL team I'm with out of Tampa, and had nothing but great things to say. Community relations people I met. So they're doing everything the right way, a first-class way. And in football and professional football, it's really the only way to do it.
And with the Vipers specifically, where is their facility, and when do you start going down there for, I guess, a training camp before the season starts?
Yeah, so the facility with the public, it's not out publicly, but I can tell you it's in the Tampa Bay area. And what was your second question? I'm sorry.
Just when you head down there, is there a training camp before the season starts?
Yeah, great question. So we do the facility, like I said, will be in the Tampa Bay area, and then, but it won't be like in the Bucs facility or USF or anything like that. But we head down there December 3rd for a little mini camp, or December 4th for a little mini camp, I believe. I may actually start driving and I'm missing that UConn game. I got to figure things out. But December 4th, we report for a 2 to 3 week mini camp. We're home for the holidays, and we all go to Dallas for training camp, I believe. All 8 teams, which the AAF did as well. Practice in Dallas together, and then we break off after like 20 days or so. We get back late January to wherever your team is, obviously Tampa for me, and then we start the season the week after the Super Bowl, just like the AAF did. We open up against the New York Guardians in MetLife Stadium, not too far up the road, obviously, from Temple and Philadelphia area. So looking forward to playing in front of some family friends again. We open up that Sunday after the Super Bowl, I think at 2 p.m. on ABC or one of the big ones. So this isn't like we're on Bleacher Report Live like I was with the AAF. Right. We're on ABC, NBC, I think ESPN, Fox Sports, FS1. So we're on big stations, and that's needed when you have a new league for sure. Visibility is big.
Colin, one of the things I wanted to ask you about too, you talked about this on your podcast, and I loved your take on it. I thought you raised a lot of good, pertinent questions, and there was a ton of talk about it now. The Fair Pay to Play Act, not going to take effect until 2023, but you had some great ideas. I think you and I are kind of on the same page with it. You articulated concerns about compliance, financial planning, boosters getting involved, and I think one of the best points you made was, as it's currently constructed, the NCAA is still getting off the hook here. They're still profiting, and all this could turn out to be just a mess, and there's so much burden left up to the schools. Just talk to our listeners about it. Again, if they missed it on your podcast, again, I thought you made some great points. What's your initial take on this? Again, a lot of it has to still be sorted out, but a lot of people are talking about it. How do you think this goes down? And you know, just share maybe some of your ideas that you had in terms of like focus groups and stuff like that. I just thought you had some great takes on it.
Yeah, so I want to make it clear that I am for it. Why not? Mm-hmm. I mean, you're a professional athlete anyway. When you're a high school student being recruited by these colleges, they're selling you just like you would be getting sold to if a company was recruiting you. They're offering you X, Y, and Z. Maybe it's money when you get the job, but when you get to college, they're offering you, hey, we're going to pay for your books. We're going to pay for your school. We're going to pay for your meal plan. We're going to give you money for rent. Whatever it may be, we're going to give you a stipend. You're pretty much a professional athlete. They're just not cutting you checks. You're still paying taxes on your scholarship, folks. I want to make that clear. We got taxed on our scholarships at Temple. We get taxed on the money we get when it comes to not per diem, but when it comes to like I think guys now get about $3,000 a year.
The cost of attendance,
like
cost of attendance
and
stipend,
stuff like that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I think that's probably the cost of attendance stipend that you're talking about.
Correct. Thank you. So,
Yeah.
But I want to make it clear, and I've been doing a lot of media stuff. It's going to happen.
Right.
So it's like I don't even want to fight against it because it's going to happen. The train's rolling on the tracks now. Well, how can you fix it? The one thing that concerns me is, like you said, the NCAA is still making all the money.
Yep.
They're not sheckling out $1. They're not changing anything. So what are they going to do to help these kids succeed with the money? What are they going to do to set up a schedule for these kids to make appearances to make money if that's a thing? Are they going to set up courses for these kids to learn financial planning? Because I wish I had them.
Mm-hmm.
Are they going to assign financial advisors? Are these things going to be put? Is there going to be a certain bank account where the money goes for these players and they can access it after they're done or while they're done or while they're playing? Excuse me. Can players be fined now? Is there a time away from the program where these players can go do these marketing, signing jerseys or going to dealerships? Because there's a 7-day-a-week job being an athlete. Now you're going to add school on top of that, which is 7 days a week, and now you're going to do some marketing things 1 to 2 days a week. So there's a lot of questions with that. The other thing is where are the skeletons in the closet? There's plenty in college athletics now. We know a lot of them, right, with boosters and paying players and whatever. You could say it's happening this school or that school. It happens everywhere at all levels, really, of Division I sports. But you can have an agent. Well, can the agent go to your high school and recruit you? Just like all the kids that went to Temple and all the kids I was with at the University of Florida were. Like, I told the story last time on the podcast. Check us out, Not For Long Sports Podcast. Charlie Weiss walked down the middle of the hallway at Archbishop Wood High School when I was there. I was late to school. My buddies were calling me, hey, you got to get in here. Charlie's here. And I was like 5 minutes late the one day. We hit traffic or something. I forget what it was. And I walked in. And I was like, oh, my God, this is Charlie Weiss. Now, there was plenty. Ryan Day was at BC. He lived at Wood. You can go down the list. Well, is Drew Rosenhaus going to be sitting at the number one player in the country's school selling himself? Like, now players have to deal with agents. It's going to trickle down to high school now. Are high school players going to be paid? So what is the can of worms that's going to come with it?
Yeah.
So that's, state-wise, if you're Nick Saban, say, I said this in the podcast too, and it's not legal in Alabama, Nick Saban's going to walk. Because he wants to compete at the highest levels. He's going to say this is just tainting college athletics, one, because we can't compete. We're Alabama or Auburn or whomever. Or two, fix this and make it legal or I'm out of here. Nick Saban's got more pull than a lot of people do in all of government in Alabama, if not the most. Mm-hmm. So there's just layers upon layers of issues of how can you solve this. And I think, like you said, John, the top of the list is the NCAA is off the hook financially. So what are they going to do to check on some money, put resources out there, coinciding with compliance to make it work the best?
Yeah.
That's at Not For Long Pod on Twitter. Just another plug for you.
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Colin, this is Sam here. Pleasure meeting you. We haven't met yet.
What's up, Sam?
A lot of great ideas about the Fair Pay to Play Act. Excuse me. One thing I was going to ask about what you thought about in terms of agents, because it was a discussion I had with a couple of friends not too long ago in terms of a lot of players, it feels like their families are kind of advisors, but if agents do come into it, that's something they allow. How does that play in? So interesting to hear your thoughts on that. But switching over, you're kind of an expert in Temple football, I'd say. What are your general thoughts on what you saw in Tampa at UCF from Temple football? USF, excuse me.
That's something else we discussed today. UCF and USF are way too similar to be in the same conference, but continue.
I know. And you know what? This is a side note. I wish they found a way for Temple to play Navy because it'd be the same thing. It's a 2-hour drive.
Yeah.
I don't know what just popped in my mind. I'm looking at the thing here, and I saw Navy in the standings. I'm like, this should be playing every year. We play a team out of the West every year. Florida plays LSU out of the SEC West every year. I know Navy's a late ad, but why can't we play Navy every year?
I
It should be a thing. We're going to be putting the bowl game this year, probably down there too.
Yeah,
So,
I love that road trip. You wouldn't get any argument out of me.
right, you know what I'm saying? It's a great city. If people from Navy, they all want to come to Philly too. It's just Navy already plays in Philly, so the American needs to make that work. Maybe we'll make some phone calls after this to get on.
Colin Thompson, Annapolis Advisory Board. I like it.
I'm also for those who don't know, I love Annapolis. I'm down there frequently as much as I can. I love it. I have friends who live there, so I'm a huge fan of Navy. My uncle was a fighter pilot in the Navy, so
Oh, wow.
I used to love playing Navy every year.
Mm-hmm.
So long story short, we had an over/under on how many times Harry Donahue would say UCF during the broadcast, myself included. We crushed the over. I think it was at a time, but it just happened. So don't take it the wrong way, my friend. Nice to meet you as well. So initial thoughts. I think Temple just outclassed them player for player. I think that was the case before, but a couple athletes would beat us down there, maybe a scheme here and there, and all of a sudden you'd be looking up and we're down 3 scores, and we weren't the teams when I played at Temple to be down 3 scores. But Temple there's different classes in the American Conference. Obviously at the top, SMU's up there, Memphis is up there, Temple's up there, UCF's up there, Cincinnati's up there, and then it's like USF, Tulane are in the middle, and then it's ECU, UConn, Tulsa. Tulsa plays teams tough, I will say. Houston's on the bottom too. But you can just tell that certain classes of football in the American, which made the conference really good this year, really strong in my opinion, obviously well represented in the top 25. But my initial reaction is the health of the defensive line shows now. They're rotating guys in at a clip. It looks like hockey line changes coming off the sideline, which to me, that's a staple of a good defensive line. You see it with the Eagles now creating pressure on the quarterback. When they don't have depth, they can't get there. I don't really know of any teams in the league that do it. Even the Bears have a ton of depth, and they still, when they don't have the depth and they have injuries there, they don't get there as much. So my initial reaction is defensive line played very well. They did enough offensively to get the job done. So, they got beat in a lot of statistical categories. They didn't look pretty on third down. They were 5 for 14. USF was 10 for 19. At the end of the day, they got the win. I'm not going to sit here and nitpick, but they play well enough. They made enough plays on special teams, and it was a clean outfit, and it was a good win for Temple to get back on track after the long bye week there with the Thursday football game, or the short bye week, I should say. Beneficial to Temple recruiting, allows the coaches to get out and recruit on the weekends. Like I just said, those coaches go and recruit Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So a good win for the Owls overall.
One other question I had for you is, you've seen the last couple of games Todd Centeio get QB2 get a rep in the first half, a rep in the second half. What are your thoughts on that different style of offense as they've gotten more into conference play?
Well, people don't like it. I'll say for the vast majority, they liked it the first game when Todd went in and it looked like the offense clicked on a different cylinder when then Anthony was in there. Do I think Todd should be the starter? No, but I still think Todd should play. When I think Todd should be in is on 3rd and 2, and you're going to run that read zone option, and Anthony's not pulling it. It happened multiple times against USF. Temple's up there running the clock, milking the clock at the second half, and Anthony, they're not calling plays for Anthony to throw the ball, which we've seen a couple times this year. Well, put Todd in if you know you're not going to throw it, and have him run that option because it gives him an option for him to pull the ball. Because, like I said, Anthony's not pulling the football. He can. He was pretty good. We've seen it at times, but he's not going to get the edge by any means. So I'm a fan of the mix-up. I'm not a fan of the, third series you're in type thing. I'd rather see him come in certain situations, have a couple plays that maybe 3-4 plays they're going to run with Todd, which I think they only have that in now, and then just be pure and dominant with that. But to that extent of these predetermined things, I'm starting to not become a fan of it as much because it's coming pretty predictable.
Colin, what do you think they're getting into this Saturday against Tulane? They're having a nice season. They're 6-3 overall. They haven't been a good road team. They're 1-3 on the road coming into Philly. And they've got a really nice dual threat quarterback in Justin McMillan, who's had a great season. They've spread their rushing attack out pretty well. don't have a ton of marquee wins. They've lost at Memphis, kept it close at Navy, but lost there. What do you see as some of the concerns for Temple in winning this game, or is this a game that is a little easier for them because they're playing this one at home?
I think it's easier because we're playing this one at home. Not that Tulane is a tough place to play. I've played there. It's a great road trip, obviously, for anybody who wants to go down to New Orleans. Quick weekend trip. Great little – it's like a high school stadium. Very small, but great food from what I hear. My parents loved it. Family loved one. We went down there. And just a great place to see a game. And the flip side, they're coming up here. It's going to be a little colder on Saturday. I don't know how Tulane's going to love that, especially when you go down and Temple's weighing on you in the run game. A game that Jagger Gardner had the week before against USF, 25 carries, 133 yards. I thought he looked the best he's ever looked. I know it's obvious because of the numbers, but if you watch Jagger, he's more of a strider. He looked quicker. His feet looked quicker. He looked more, instead of elongated runs with his legs, he was short and choppy, and he made people miss, and he hit the hole well. So I like what they have there. I also like the other running back that came in and subbed in. He played great too. So Anthony looked game manager at times. I don't think they stretch him out enough. But I think it's kind of the offense they want to run, and I'm fine with it. If that equals wins, I have no problem with that. I'm not going to sit here and be critical. Blue obviously had a huge day. Anthony was very clean throwing him the football. Blue 11 for 121. The formula is there. You know what Temple football is going to bring. The pass rush, which we saw was born last week. Roche, 3.5 sacks. They held Cronkite at USF, he only had 21 yards rushing.
Yeah.
He had a pretty good, he had full 500, I think, in the last 4 games, 500 plus in the last 4 games before that. So the formula's there for Temple. They're going to stop the run. They're going to get after the passer. Anthony Russo's been a game manager pretty much all year, but obviously we know he can pop at times. We've seen it down the sideline against USF to Mac, getting the ball to Blue early and often in the slot. So I like the formula for the win this week against Tulane. I think the line's up to 5. So
I think it's 6.
No, I saw 5 this morning.
If they're an underdog, I'm all for it. If Temple's not ranked, I'm all for it. It's something in the water here, like we talked about before. When they are, favored. When we were favored when I was there, there's just a certain vibe to the way it is around the building and way it is around the stadium. So I'm a huge underdog Temple fan, and I do think they mopped Tulane up this weekend, in my opinion. I think Temple's hitting on all cylinders at the right time. They have a nice signature win going down to Florida. Tough place to play. I think they get a nice win at home this weekend.
Now, Colin, the injuries are really starting to add up for this team. IGM and Vincent Picozzi both out for the season. As someone who was a tight end who played right next to the offensive line, how does the team respond when a starting guard goes down like that?
It's tough. I don't think Picozzi is just a guard, even though he is a guard on the roster, right? But he's a backup center for Matt Hennessy, who's had some injury problems the last couple of years. Nothing crazy, but he'll miss a game or two.
Right.
He's your glue guy. He's a veteran. He's a former walk-on Earth Scholarship, all-conference type player. He's the heartbeat of that offensive line with Matt Hennessy and Jovan Fair. So it's going to be missed. He's going to be missed. I saw the play happen. I probably shouldn't have said it on live radio, but I said it looks like he tore his ACL or whatever. What came out of it? Do we know, or just lower body injury?
I don't know that Rod said it on the record, but I've heard it's an ACL.
Same.
Yeah. So which is tough to do with a knee brace on. I saw it looked like a car crash. They ran that little jailbreak screen where they let everyone rush the quarterback. They flip it out to the receiver, and then the receiver tries to get back up the middle. Behind the heels of the defensive linemen who were rushing the quarterback. Well, they turned around, proceeded to the football, and he got in the middle of a sandwich with the receiver and the tackler. So it's a big blow. It's a big blow for sure. He's a glue guy for that team. But, hey, this is the time you start developing players for next year. This is the time you start developing depth. They've had rotated guys into that position this year when Matt Hennessy went down and Picozzi moved to center. So they're going to get a guy in there with experience. Like I said, when you have a senior in Gardner and Anthony Russo, redshirt junior, who's seen just about everything you can see in the American Conference pressure-wise, and then you have Matt Hennessy at center, those 3 veterans in the middle, like Rod Carey likes to say, you want a strong team up the middle, which I completely agree with. Temple has that. So, and they've got healthy defensively up the middle as well. So I like what they're doing now. The Isaiah Graham-Mobley thing, that's tough. He's made a lot of huge plays for him this year, including the one on Georgia Tech on the goal line that flipped the game over, swung the momentum back to Temple. So they're both big blows, both leaders for him, and fortunate enough that they have some time left and can come back next year.
And sticking with injuries, Rod Carey indicated on Tuesday that Benny Walls and Ramon Davis are getting back to being fully healthy. If they do both come back and play in this Tulane game, what do you think that means for the team?
Wow, that's huge. I mean, I think Benny's still like fifth on the team or sixth on the team in tackles, and Benny hasn't played, really. It shows you how good Benny is. He's a typical Temple safety that's tough in the run game, that makes plays and forces fumbles, and just seems to be always around the football in the pass game. And then with Davis, obviously a huge, not surprise, but just a fun watch for us this year at Temple. Guy that was on pace to break a lot of records, including my partner that does the radio with Harry Donahue, but with Paul Palmer, the great Temple running back, to break some of his freshman records. But 135 carries, 655 yards, 5 TDs on the year. He's been a solid runner. He's got a great build, strong as an ox. He's going to be a great Temple running back, go down as one of the best Temple running backs probably in Temple history. Those two coming back is massive, especially after losing Pacozzi, a veteran, and Isaiah Graham-Mobley, a veteran.
Colin, in your opinion, what's going on with Isaiah Wright? He doesn't play a single snap on offense last Thursday, does play on returns and special teams after the game, and then on Monday in the American coach's call, he said, when I asked Rod Carey about it, he said, well, he got outworked. There's a lot of competition in that room, but he said it was kind of a combination of how his body was feeling, but he'd expect him to work at it this week and get back in the mix. But then when I said, well, what is it? Is it injury related, or did he just get outworked? And I think he said it was a combination of both. And to me, it sounds like there's something going on there where he might have said something that the coaches, didn't like. But at the same time, I'm assuming, again, you've been on the inside of this. We haven't. Probably still realizes that Isaiah has a ton of talent, doesn't want to string him out to the media, but something's got to be going on there, right? You don't just take a guy out that we talked about before we started recording that you could have on jet sweeps and get involved in the offense. And it's no disrespect to Jose Barbone and some of these other guys, but what's going on there? Something's got to be up, right?
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy Rod's press conferences. He sounds like the most honest Temple coach in the history of Temple coaches. I do enjoy him, but with this case, I think he's guarding Isaiah here a little bit. There's definitely something that happened off the field. You don't pull a guy who, with Blue and with Mac, was putting up, as a trio, just ridiculous numbers in the pass game, and really one of Anthony Russo's favorite targets. Isaiah is a slot receiver. He's your tight end. He's your jet sweep guy. He was Blue before Blue. He's everything to your team when it comes to when the ball's in his hands. He's electric. Doesn't really make a ton of mistakes. Plays extremely hard. Maybe too shifty at times instead of taking the yards. But hey, I mean, you kind of take the the good with the bad and the bad with the good. So I don't know. Something must have happened off the field, in my opinion, because he's in timeout because this doesn't happen. And I trust Coach Carey. I trust the Temple coaches that they're doing the best thing for Isaiah and the football team. So he'll have a chance, I'm sure, like Rod said this week, I believe in his press conference, to earn that spot back. He's a single-digit player, a player that obviously the team respects. They voted him to that number. So we'll see what happens. I can only imagine that he's going to work his way back in. He may pop a return, which we really haven't seen this year. So I think it's more off the field than on the field for Isaiah, and maybe some of the things that are happening off the field are affecting his on-the-field play with the drop kickoff returns and making mistakes offensively. So hopefully they clean things up off the field, like I said, for him to play better on the field.
Colin, one thing about Isaiah Thomas that really sticks out is the speed. Do you think speed's the kind of thing that can be developed or coached?
Isaiah Wright.
What'd I say?
Our resident
Thomas.
Celtics fan said Isaiah Thomas.
It could be a Celtics.
Oh, God.
slip there.
I'm all over the place today. Sorry. Isaiah Wright.
There we go.
Do you think speed can be developed or coached was the question, though?
No, I don't think so. Trust me, if it was developed or coached, then I would be in the NFL, brother.
I probably would, too.
Yeah, we all would be. You know, but the issue with that is sorry, hold on here. No, I don't think it can. I mean, he's such a bull. I remember I blocked for him when he was here.
Mm-hmm.
When I was there.
Sure.
He was a freshman. He would get the jet sweeps. He was running our Wildcat as a true freshman.
Yeah.
And honestly, I wouldn't even say speed is his best attribute. That's maybe one of his only weaknesses per se, and he probably is going to run a 4.5. So he's got all the attributes to be a really a top flight player in college and probably a 4th, 5th round pick, maybe even higher at times. Just depends how he does in his pro day and the combine, if he's invited in Senior Bowl, and et cetera. All that stuff's all political, and hopefully he gets invited to all of it. So we'll see. But no, I mean, he's a great player. No, it cannot be taught for sure, or I'd probably still be in the NFL.
Colin, just to follow up on that, I mean, it probably sounds like one of those no kidding statements, but it looks like they've got to get more speed into the program. I mean, that was one of the biggest glaring things in the UCF game, 63-21. Their backs got past the line and they were gone. I'm curious about what you think, just in terms of maybe a guy like Ray Davis doesn't have, at least so far, doesn't look like he has that type of speed. I know he's been banged up, but I remember looking back at Jahad Thomas's career, and maybe his sophomore season, he would get a couple of those screen passes and he'd break it off for 50, 60, 70 yards, and then he would get caught from behind. And then the following season, he wasn't getting caught from behind, and he was really shifty. I mean, he made a great move in the Penn State game, made a hell of a move in the Notre Dame game. Can that, like, maybe it can't be taught, but can a guy hit maybe another level? Are there guys on this roster, do you think they have what they need there, or do they need to go out and get a couple of burners before next season if they want to be able to run with a program like UCF or Memphis?
That's a great point. I mean, a couple things to tackle there. One, I'll tackle the UCF point first. The UCF point, I think Temple can play. If UCF slowed down and snapped the ball with 10 seconds on the game clock every time, Temple beats them. Temple beats them by 2 scores.
So you think they were just gassed?
Absolutely gassed. And nothing to do with them being out of shape or in shape or whatever. It's just UCF, like those shifty backs you said, all of a sudden you tackle one. Okay, it's 2nd and 8, then it's 3rd and 4. Well, they just ran. They literally, guys, on the sideline, I'm looking at the game clock. The clock starts when the ref puts the ball back down at 40. They're snapping the ball between 38 and 34 seconds on the game clock. That's astronomical.
Yeah.
Like, you can't even, so I hear what you're saying with the speed, and sure, UCF's got tremendous team speed and more team speed from Temple. But I don't think Temple's too far off, because look at their team speed at linebacker. Sean Bradley, Isaiah Graham Mobley, Sam Franklin. When Kwenku's healthy, he's a runner. So they have team speed. They have Roche's quick. They have good safety play, not like I think we used to have in the past, but I think they're younger and we will be there for sure. So I hear what you're saying about that. I do agree that, sure, more team speed can help. The recruiting of that is going to be massive. The development, which is really what Temple's always been, is developing players over recruiting, is huge. So I don't know. I think nobody can run with UCF. I just think what they did matched up really well against Temple, and it's not just the speed aspect. It's just Temple's a knock it out, drag it out defense, and I don't know. It just didn't match up that day. I thought with the speed of the linebacker group, it was going to work out great, but I don't know. We were all wrong, I guess. You weren't. You predicted UCF, correct?
Who the hell knows?
No,
I can't remember what I had for breakfast this morning. I think I
we
predicted.
we both had UCF. Kyle was the only one to pick Temple. It was a reversal of optimism. I was surprised.
I also predicted USF winning 31-17 last week.
You
so
did.
It shows you what I know. One last question for you, just in case we don't get to do this before Thanksgiving. I want to throw around some Thanksgiving takes with you. I want to ask you what a Thompson family Thanksgiving is like, and I want you to get into it here with Graham if you want, because Graham last year told us that he thinks stuffing is overrated.
I mean, that's just can this guy be replaced?
They've already tried from that.
Stuffing's not overrated. Let's be honest. No one is there for the turkey. I mean, unless it's covered in stuffing and gravy.
Yeah.
Let's just start there. I mean, what's the Thompson family Thanksgiving like?
Yeah.
They're all a little different. But, not they're all a little different. They're just in different houses. But the majority of the time you go to aunts or uncles or, our place, and it's just the normal food, football, For me in college, it was great. I was able to come home when I was at Temple for my last 3 years of my college career. At Florida, we used to do it where we go to Publix, pick up a turkey, and just fill it with all the stuffings and gravy and everything in a box, and they charge you like $25, and you walk out and you have all your meal for that. I'll never forget that. You never forget the holidays you're away from home. I'll leave it at that. The one holiday we were at Christmas for my senior year for the military bowl, we were in D.C. and everyone's complaining. I'm like, listen, you complain all you want. You got the rest of your life to do Christmas at home with your family. This is the last time you'll probably be away from your family for Christmas, so enjoy it. You'll remember it. And people still tell me they remember that Christmas the most. So I'm off topic per usual. But Thanksgiving at Thompson is nothing crazy. We're watching football, drinking beer, having a good time, talking about, all the world problems when it comes to the NFL. And hopefully that Detroit's a good football team that year. So we can watch a little Lions action because they're always on. The Cowboys are always on. It seems like the Bears played Detroit last year, so that was fun for me. So that is what a Thompson Thanksgiving is like. No different than anybody else's, but I can guarantee you heavy involvement of stuffing, pineapple stuffing, regular stuffing.
Pineapple
something
stuffing
new every year. So I don't know what this blasphemy is about stuffing's overrated, but we may reconsider this gentleman being on the podcast.
Kyle swore at Graham last year.
Yeah.
I think he almost jumped across the table.
He said it wasn't even hesitation. He said the F word at me. I was shocked. Because I think other Thanksgiving food gets too much disrespect. I think turkey's delicious. I think with gravy and cranberry, it's totally enhanced. But I think turkey's great in its own. I love green bean casserole. I think all that's great. I just think stuffing doesn't taste good at all.
Colin, I have one quick point.
Just overrated.
My one beef with Thanksgiving is that it doesn't get enough respect.
Yes.
I think people switch to Christmas too early and don't give Thanksgiving the time of day. What are your thoughts on that? At what point do you switch?
Well, I just think there's something about Christmas that just assimilates more to time off.
That's fair.
There's more time off. With the new year, people take that week off. It's just a different vibe. It's kind of like all the kids are still out of school. I think Thanksgiving, kids are still in school, and just everyone's got a half day on Wednesday. I don't know. That's a great point. I think Christmas is an easier sell. There's more presents. There's more giving. I think my mom's has retail stores in Cape May and Peddler's Village and Princeton. So for me, I see it with all that.
Three of the most beautiful places in the region too.
What?
Yeah, you three of the most beautiful places in the region too. Peddler's Village is great. Princeton's amazing. Cape May, I would love them. My dream would be to actually have a house in Cape May and host Thanksgiving there. That would be amazing.
Yeah, we're trying to persuade the aunt and uncle to let us have Cape May here this year. But I understand it's a holiday and get it. But no, I just think because of the retail industry and because of just everywhere you look, there's Christmas ornament. It kind of drives itself. Halloween hits, and then it's like Thanksgiving. You're not going to sell turkeys like stuffed turkeys to put outside of your house, and pumpkins are the only thing really. So Christmas is the lights and the reindeer, and just more build up to it, I guess.
Well, I like it.
I'll get back to it. Thanksgiving decorations, Colin. I'll make a list.
Yeah. I guess I'm not up to snuff with that. Hey guys, you don't even know I'm going to do this, and I don't know if we're even allowed to do this on the podcast, but I want to give away 2 tickets through Al Scoop for the game this weekend. Is that cool?
Sure.
That's great with us. Yeah.
Yeah. I like it.
So the stipulations are this: I'm going to give two tickets away to the Tulane game this weekend. You have to retweet this Al Scoop podcast. You have to follow Al Scoop. You have to follow Temple Football, of course, and then follow me so I can DM you if you win. I'm going to give them away to Tulane game this weekend. Those are the instructions. Simple as that. Guys, don't tweet it out. Don't anything. They got to hear it on the podcast and then take to Twitter and make it happen.
That's a great.
Absolutely, I like that a lot.
This man knows. This man knows the stuff.
That's some great marketing right there.
Tremendous marketing. A lot of different career paths ahead for you, my friend. A lot of different possibilities I see. Well,
I appreciate you guys letting me cut my teeth here on the Al Scoop as always.
Cut your teeth, man. I think you're a seasoned pro now. I don't think you're cutting your teeth anymore, dude.
Let's say 2000 what? What time I was on 2014 with you guys? It's been 5 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
I guess so. Mm-hmm. Graham was still. What were you doing in 2014?
I was just learning how to drive. I was a 16-year-old.
Dear Lord.
In Downingtown.
Yeah. Venturing around 113 in the Exton Mall.
That's exactly right.
Colin, this has been awesome. I really appreciate it. I know you're busy. Appreciate the time. I won't see you Saturday, obviously, but I will catch up with you soon. Thanks for spending some time with us. This awesome stuff as always.
I love working with you guys and hang with you guys, and have fun at the dog show there. Don't want anybody make fun of you too much for it, because I won't do it on air, but I'll do it behind closed doors.
That's fair enough. All right, buddy. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Colin.
All right, guys. I'll see you.
Awesome. All right, so great stuff there from Colin Thompson. How about that? A ticket giveaway, some generosity. The guy knows the stuff, knows how to market, as we say.
He does. That was well done. We're going to throw in there as well, follow the Owl Scoop Instagram page as well. So to enter the contest, you're going to be following Owl Scoop on Twitter, retweeting the podcast page, follow Temple Football, follow Colin Thompson on Twitter, and follow the Owl Scoop page on Instagram. Plenty of great content on all those channels.
Great stuff.
Yeah.
What stood out? I mean, Colin's always great. Spends a lot of time with us. Covered a lot of different topics there. Just general reaction to like his thoughts on. I don't know. There's so much to get into. The USF game. We could spend a ton of time on the Fair Pay to Play Act, correct?
Yeah.
But just general thoughts and his take on the team from you guys.
I thought it was interesting when he talked about with team speed. I think we all kind of saw that SMU loss and the UCF loss and just looked at Temple's, especially on defense, team speed, and said there's just something missing here and that they're totally at a different level, and that's a problem. And he did mention you can't really teach team speed, but I thought he was he made a good point that Temple may not be that far off. They just kind of have to adjust to that playing style. Maybe they just weren't prepared for that. That is something they have to work on, but it sounds more of like something that can be attained, where I think we're more gloom and doom about just having to recruit better and make sure this team speed is built from the ground up. So I thought that was interesting. And I thought about Isaiah Wright, too, that obviously it must be something off the field if he's not getting on offense. It's not something clearly on the field. And, you wonder what's going to happen there.
I agree. Yeah, the stuff he said about Isaiah Wright, I thought was interesting. I wasn't expecting him to dive that deep into it, but it's cool to get his perspective from a player. The other thing that he mentioned that's not about Temple football, but I thought was interesting to hear him talk about, was as someone who doesn't know a ton about the XFL and the AFL, to hear him talk about the way that the AFL kind of died, so the AFL died so the XFL could kind of move forward, and the ways they're improving on it and the things that had to change. Like the part he mentioned about AFL teams going to a Planet Fitness to work out, like not having facilities, to hear him talk about that and the way things had to change and what went wrong so things could go right the second time around was cool to hear him talk about.
I'm excited to watch this. There should be a lot of former Temple Owls in there, and the XFL too seems like it has, from people I've talked to who are either know people who are involved or getting involved, it's going to have at least 2 years for sure. It's got the funding for that, and it's going to be more stable. No spring league has made it 2 years fully, so maybe that changes things and maybe it's able to stick around. So that'll be fun to watch and see what they improve upon.
Mm-hmm. Let's take another look at this Tulane game. I'm kind of, my gut feel as we kind of work our way into predictions here. Sam had to duck out, so it's just Graham and I now taking you into the rest of the show. I kind of have the same gut feel that Colin has. I think Temple's going to win this game. I think they're going to, obviously they're not coming off a loss, but I wouldn't be surprised to see this approach with Isaiah Wright work. I wouldn't be surprised to see a stat line of like 6 catches, 85 yards, maybe a touchdown. Maybe he comes close to breaking off a return, because Tulane has been, again, I don't want to take anything away from them. They've got a nice team. Justin McMillan's a real good dual threat quarterback, has made some good decisions on both ends, running it and throwing it. Former LSU quarterback, didn't really play there, but real nice running attack. But they're 5-0 at home and 1-3 on the road. And I'm kind of with Colin. I think they're going to win this game, and I think they're going to win this game by a couple touchdowns.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'll say a couple touchdowns. I think Tulane is quietly better than we think. But
they're very good. Yeah.
And they really aren't good on the road, and they haven't played that many great opponents. Auburn obviously was an outstanding game, but they lost big to them. Temple, I feel like, is equipped to handle dual threat quarterbacks, even without IGM in the linebacking crew. I think they're a team that can kind of shut that down, make him one-dimensional, and I think that'll be a key to success. I think it's going to be a close game, maybe even an overtime game. I made a fun prediction earlier where I said on our Temple Sports Hour on WHIP that the Temple basketball game and the Temple football game will end at the exact same time with a last-second shot from Quentin Rose and a Jaden Blue touchdown in overtime. Because 2 o'clock start probably ends around 4 o'clock.
Could add up.
Yeah, and an overtime win would.
That'd be a hell of a.
It would be the timeline on Twitter at that moment would be electric. But yeah, I think
is that like your social media dream?
Yeah, for sure. I dream about social media a lot. and engagement rates, and definitely.
Did you see he was like Zach Galifianakis' character in The Hangover, with just like the numbers
swirling,
floating around,
just
like
the hearts
just
and the
metrics.
retweets.
This
Yeah.
is great. But you're up at, well, you have to be up at LaSalle, right?
I am, yeah. I'm actually not even sure if I'm going to be writing an article, but they want me to be there anyway. So I might just be watching the game and getting paid for it, which would be great. But because they have a LaSalle writer
Gotcha.
already,
Yeah,
another intern who's covering LaSalle. So we might have two stories from two different perspectives, or they might just have
a duel at center court.
It's gonna be a fun meeting.
I shall meet you at 20th and Albany. The best man will win.
DeMichael Cole, I'm excited to meet him. He's the LaSalle guy, so I'll definitely be there. Don't know exactly what I'll be doing yet. Hopefully I'll find out tonight. But yeah, it should be fun.
Yeah,
so I think it's gonna be a close Temple win over Tulane.
Okay, so we're both. You give me a score.
I'm gonna say 28-21. Temple wins
in overtime. I'm gonna go. This is not gonna be exciting at all. Not that our predictions are exciting.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
kidding. I predicted a 31-17 loss last week. I'm gonna predict a 31-17 win.
Flip the script
this week. Yeah, flip the script.
I like
so I was impressed with. Before we move along to your scenario that you want to talk about, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah.
I was really impressed with the way Aldeazic played last week at linebacker. He was, when they were putting together the recruiting class that he was in, he was kind of like the social media glue. He was a good recruiter for them, retweeting stuff, reaching out to guys, almost kind of like a recruit. And when coaches recruit, they want guys like that. And I think a couple of fans had said to me, like, hey, can this guy really play? Or like, is he just like a good character guy who's just a so-so player? But I thought stepping in, I thought he played pretty well. What we didn't know heading into the game was that they had all week to prepare for Isaiah Graham-Mobley being out. But I think you'd have to like what you saw out of him. The option of being able to play Will Kwenku, actually, that's why you kind of hold him out. And obviously he was banged up, but to be able to play him and still give him the ability to potentially redshirt next year is interesting. But they weren't really hurt there. And I'm not trying to take anything away from Isaiah Graham-Mobley. I think he's a really good player. But what they could do at the quarterback position, what USF could do, what Jordan Cronkite could do, just, again, the speed factor there. If you had told me before the game that IGM's out, I thought they might have been in even more trouble. But I thought the linebacking core responded pretty well. It gives me some... It gives me some reason to think that they'll play even better against Tulane this week. Heading into Saturday's game at LaSalle, the short trip up North Broad Street. The Owls are 2-0, and so they beat Drexel. We did a wrap-up after last Tuesday's game. Played kind of an ugly game against Morgan State. I think we all get the general rub here so far. They look like they're interested in defending. They want to defend. They are not a team of shooters. I think they have to hope it sooner or later. I mean, it's only been 2 games. I'm very well aware of the fact that they're still trying to figure out lineups. They've got to hope that if they want to do anything this season, that Monty Scott can give them more than he's giving them off the bench. I mean, he's getting looks. It just hasn't knocked them down yet. But nonetheless, 2-0, playing a LaSalle team that, as of now, we're recording this on a Wednesday afternoon. LaSalle is 1-0 heading into tonight's game against Penn. But still a game that Temple, you would argue, should win. But your general thoughts on what you've seen so far from the first 2 games of the Aaron McKee era?
Yeah, I think a lot of fans generally criticize when a team starts against these kind of low-level teams because they want to see more excitement. They want to see a great non-conference schedule. But I think this is your argument for why you start against teams like this, because they're still trying to figure it out, but they're able to still get wins against Drexel and against Morgan State. I think the defense, obviously that's something that we heard about all offseason, up-tempo, going to be forcing. It's not just Napier Louis now going for steals. Everybody's going for steals, and Napier Louis has even taken a step up on his defense, which has been remarkable. And that's really how they've won these games, and it's really how they beat Morgan State. Most of their scoring didn't come from just your general jump shots. They were a really bad shooting team on Saturday. And I think it was ended up being like 36% from the field. And Quentin Rose has been one of the least efficient players out there in these first 2 games. And that's something that needs to change, but at least they can get these 2 wins right now. So I'm impressed by the defense. I'm impressed by the fast breaks they're creating and how they're playing as a team. You're definitely seeing that style that you heard about with Aaron McKee. But you also heard that Quentin Rose's jump shot got better. You've heard that overall this team's ready to shoot better, as a group, and you're just not seeing that yet. And while you can get wins against Drexel and Morgan State, maybe even against LaSalle, you're not going to beat USC on the road that way. You're not going to beat Maryland that way. And once conference play comes, you have to be able to hit those shots, especially when you can play this great defense, but if teams start hitting shots, they're going to beat you if you're not able to keep up. So that's something that you have to see Temple take a step up in soon.
One of the things I am encouraged by, and this may not do a whole lot for fans, Aaron McKee seems to have a quick hook with guys. If there's a lapse, I mean, granted, you could say this about a lot of coaches, but I kind of felt, generally speaking, early in his career, Fran would have that early hook, and then sometimes he'd say, well, I'm going to let guys play through it. And Aaron could certainly, there are some cases where coaches have to let guys play through it, but seems to have a pretty quick hook, and as you said, isn't afraid to cycle through certain players and wants to play a lot of guys. He had Josh Pierre-Louis in there inside 6 minutes in the opener. I mean, he hasn't done much, but even throwing Arashma Parks out there in both games. But I think you got to get more out of Monty Scott. Again, it's early. J.P. Mormon might be your best, statistically speaking, he's your top returning three-point shooter. It's early. We'll see what happens with Damian Dunn. I believe Aaron was asked on Saturday, right? Is he close to returning? And Aaron just said no.
Just a flat no.
And that's going to be interesting to follow. I think Aaron likes to fly low, does not like to give out. I mean, he said at Media Day, I'm always going to be honest with you guys, and I think he is no BS and pretty straightforward, but I think he also doesn't like to draw a ton of attention to himself. I think that's going to be an interesting decision. The next opportunity we get to talk to Aaron, I'm sure it's going to be a question, when is Damian coming back? I think they might reach a point with him where they say, okay, depending on how he recovers, if it goes into December and it goes into January, should we just redshirt him? And again, we're just kind of speculating and spitballing here, but likes all his players. But again, I think he lights up a little differently when he talks about Damian Dunn. But given the skill set that we know that he has, and he hasn't tested on the college level yet, he's really versatile, can shoot it. Aaron called him a Philly guard, even though he's not from Philly. I think he might remind some people of Marty Collins. Marty Collins turned out to be a late first-round draft pick, the last first-round draft pick Temple's had. So could really help this team, but we'll see how things go there. All we have to go on is no, he's not close. So we'll see. That could change. But, they got to get somebody's got to start hitting shots. I would be shocked if Monty Scott goes through the whole year in a season-long shooting slump. I think he's the type of guy who could catch fire for you, and he's the story in a game. So, and
he looks like someone who's still kind of adjusting to the speed. Obviously, Kennesaw State is a very different environment than with Temple basketball. So, I mean, not very different, I should say, especially these first two opponents. It's not.
Yes, and of course, it's once you get into conference play down there, you're down a level a little bit. But I mean, he had some of his best games against some top competition. So I don't know. I think it could be him just knocking off Frost more than anything else. I mean, he's gotten some clean looks and knows how to create a little bit of space. He's just got to knock some of those looks down. And if Josh Pierre-Louis plays a little bit more, again, not to take away from what Alani Moore has done, but if Josh gets in there a little bit more and can push the pace, take a charge, get the break started. I think this is still very much a team that is, what team isn't a work in progress two games in, but I know the shooting's been ugly. The defensive effort has been there. We've seen teams. I'd be lying if I said to you that I know every single tendency of what Morgan State does, whether they're a zone team all the time. Right. But they did throw some zone at them, and you can see now. I mean, if I'm Aaron McKee, he talked about in the preseason, I'd practice a lot of zone, playing against a lot of zone, because you can say, well, these guys don't have a ton of shooting right now. I'd zone them up, make them beat us from the outside, and see if they can do it. So,
and that's what Quinn Rose said after the game. They were prepared for that reason. And he also talked about the offense and its struggles, and just said there's certain tiers of the offense that we're just still working out the kinks through, and that's going to happen during the first couple games. It doesn't seem like they're very worried at all. They think the shooting's going to be there. It's just about working with the offense and starting to get it going in practice. And they all thought that it was going well in practice, so it's just making adjustments. They have a whole week to do it now before the Sal. And it was cool to see Josh Pierre-Louis didn't have a great game. No one expected him to in his first game against LaSalle. He had his first highlight reel play against Morgan State when Quentin Rose, I think it was Quentin Rose, who missed a layup and he came flying behind and got a dunk. That must have been great for his confidence. And Pierre-Louis lit up talking about that. There's pieces there that are starting to come together, and this will be an interesting game to watch.
Think they win Saturday?
I think they
do.
Not that
we're going to be doing game-by-game basketball predictions all the time, but
this could be another game where if they're not shooting well, they're going to probably still be winning for most of this game, but LaSalle's going to hang around. But I think they're the better team, and they should be able to win this game even on the road. So I think it'll be a close game that comes down to the wire. But if they start hitting shots, I think they're the better team. They'll pull away. and I think they'll win this game.
Yeah, if you quick look at LaSalle, David Beatty's their leading scorer, just one game in, a Philly guard who a lot of Temple fans are familiar with because Temple recruited him. I don't know how heavily they recruited him. A South Carolina transfer. He had 15 in the opener. Ed Croswell, a guy that's going to be playing a lot more for LaSalle this season, had 12 points in that game. Always tricky though when you go up there and play in that game, in that environment in a small gym up at Gola. And again, they are just this is going to be their third game of the season heading in, but
they lost last time they were up there.
Yeah, so again, you'd like to see somebody catch fire, whether it's JP Mormon from the outside, whether it's Monty Scott. I think you'd feel a lot better about yourself if Monty Scott starts turning into maybe that double-digit score off the bench that than you want him to be. A couple of other just recruiting updates along the way. So the NCAA's early signing period has started up. Jaleel White from Wildwood Catholic did sign. Again, we're recording this on a Wednesday this week. Jaleel White from Wildwood Catholic did sign his national letter of intent today. Quincy Adam McCoy has not yet signed his national letter of intent. It's early in the process, but those are the two verbal commitments now. Jaleel White is a signee. There's still that open scholarship, that third open scholarship. Temple is still recruiting Santiago Vescovi, would be a huge get for them, the point guard out of Uruguay who's playing at the NBA Global Academy in Australia. We'll see how things go well there, but they have one signature in the books. We'll keep an eye on that. Let's get to some mailbag questions to close this off. We have plenty of them.
I haven't done a mailbag in a while. It's exciting.
Graham is back for the mailbag. Several of these are from the message board, a couple from Twitter. We have another text question from Pat Egan from 97.5 The Fanatic. Again, first one comes from SoCal Al from the message board. And we talked about this with Colin earlier. If schools can legally compensate athletes, what impact could this have on TU athletics? I mean, I think the easy answer, but the most responsible answer is it's too early to say. I don't think anybody from Temple Fran Dunphy actually talked a little bit to Channel 6 about it, and he'd said, no one from Temple has really kind of made an official statement on it just yet. But, I mean, in 2023, it's going to have an impact on everybody, but who knows what will happen between 2019 and 2023. So I think it's still too early to tell. I can understand why fans are curious about it, but my initial take would be what Colin's would be, that it puts so much burden on the institutions, not just Temple but everywhere. Your compliance people, their jobs aren't easy to begin with, and just really managing the whole student athlete process. When you get agents in the mix, it could get interesting. I agree with Colin. I'm all about these players, getting something for their likeness. I'm definitely not against them getting paid, but do you trust the NCAA to figure this out the right way? I don't know.
Probably
but
not.
It'll have an impact on Temple. Certainly it's going to have an impact on everybody. I just think it's too soon to tell right now.
Yeah, and I think it's too soon just to tell specifically with Temple, with what kind of athletes are going to have in that year that can be marketable and can be going out and making this compensation, because it's not like Temple is one of the programs that's going to be all over the country right now, or promoting things, and even the Philadelphia area, probably not even some of the biggest names. So it'll be interesting to see what this program looks like at that time, and then we'll have a better idea of what the impact will be.
Next question comes from the screen name Skay PhD, Skay PhD. I watched UCF and Memphis tonight, and they're huge. How are we going to match up against those teams this year being so much shorter? Also, Houston got Grimes eligible in just about no time at all. What's going on with the NCAA? The big schools, sure, but Houston. So kind of a two-parter there. He's talking about eligibility waivers for transfers, but how is Temple going to get matched up against these teams being so much shorter? I think we've talked about that before. It's got to be team rebounding, doing what Nate Pierre-Louis is doing, doing what JP Mormon could do for you. It's an evolving process. I don't see Damian Moore and Justin Hamilton turning into these 8-9 rebounded game guys. They're still, I mean, Justin's put on some weight. All of these guys, I think, have gotten, for the most part, into better conditioning with Brady Welsh, their new strength and conditioning coach. But I think it's going to have to be, he mentions Houston here in a different context in the question. But when Houston came in here and kicked Temple's butt around a couple years ago in rebounding, they did it with a bunch of guys that were 6'6", 6'7", 6'8". They were not doing it with 7-footers. We talked about that before. That's how they're going to have to get it done. I don't think that, size could be a false sense of hope. I mean, even if Temple had brought in 2 7-foot recruits, it's, now we have size.
Right.
Fans are saying, now we have size. Now they're going to rebound. But, No, not necessarily. That's how you're going to have to do it.
And it looks like they're doing it so far. I mean,
Right.
they didn't win the rebounding battle in either of these the first two games, but it's been a focal point after the game of this is what we have to do to get better at rebounding. This is what we're most worried about after these two games. But there are certain points, and again, it's against Drexel and Morgan State, but like you see Napier, Louis, and Quentin Rose are the only two going up for this ball. And, it seems like it's something that they're going to be working on that can work to their advantage. You don't need to have that height, that length to be getting these rebounds, and they know that, and they're working on that for sure.
Next question comes from Chi-Town Al. Any update on Jake Forrester's waiver status? Has he officially been ruled out yet? I can talk to someone today about this. He has not been officially ruled out yet. There's no update. I think Temple's still waiting to hear. I think, and I get it, I think fans think or believe that, okay, the start of the season, if we don't hear something by the start of the season, then that's it. The NCAA works on its own calendar. I was told, and I think even one of our readers shared this on the message board, and it checks out. I think that Indiana had been asked to submit more paperwork to the NCAA. I think Temple's still waiting. I haven't been given any indication by any source I've talked to that this is definitely going to happen. I still think the odds are stacked against Jake Forrester being eligible this year. Do I think he could help? Yeah, because he gets described constantly as like a high energy guy. You could certainly use that on the defensive end. He's 6'9", he's athletic. You could use that when it comes to rebounding, but no update yet. And I know fans are getting, sure, you see other guys, their decisions are rendered, and you're saying, well, what about Temple? Just is what it is. I know people hate hearing that, but as of now, on a Wednesday afternoon, still no decision yet. Next question comes from Sweet Drew on Twitter at Dr. Drew. Granted, we aren't even a year into the Rod Carey era, but what are your thoughts on what the ceiling for one of his teams is? Obviously, a lot of it will come down to recruiting, but what are your thoughts in terms of the on-field product? As a departure from the flashy assistant hire, I'm wondering if your 3 to 5 year outlook on the program has changed at all after what you've seen this year.
I don't think it's really changed personally for me. I don't think that. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. It's the first, not even the end of the first year of the Rod Carey era that I think you can really tell. And when you look at the Jeff Collins era, short of that one was the first year was very, very different from the second year, and I think you already had a better start with Rod Carey. There have definitely been some issues with in-game coaching, with just some of the team that you start to question things, but it's going to come down to recruiting. It's going to be coming down to long-term stuff, and this team is decent. This team is competing. Like I think I brought up on maybe 2 weeks ago that Temple fans aren't exactly happy that it's likely they won't get to the championship game, and New Year's Six is probably out of the question. But the fact that they're eligible again, that's something that this program hasn't done in a long time. So I still think that this this coaching staff hasn't really made me feel like they're not going to be taking a step forward. It's just too early to tell.
Yeah, I think, and we talked about this at the beginning of the season. There were high expectations, and I think it's okay that there were high expectations. Even Rod Carey himself had said, we're taking over everybody knows we're taking over a pretty good program and a really good football team that doesn't require a rebuild, but every staff is going to have its own adjustments, and unless things go differently than they normally do, just by the way things go in college football, Rod may lose an assistant or two in the offseason, depending on how things go. I'm not trying to take a hack at the loyalty level for these guys, but there are always opportunities there to move around. So, so far, I think he's done a pretty good job. Of course, when you lose back-to-back games like they did, and lose as badly as they did, lose to the two of the top teams in the league like they did, people are going to have questions. They've had injuries. What's going on with Isaiah Wright? Every staff, I think, deserves the opportunity to tweak things and say, okay, this worked, this didn't work. Yes, there's a good roster here, but they still have to recruit. I mean, they still need a couple of game-changing backs. Everybody needs help along the offensive line, but I don't know. I kind of be foolish as a reporter to say that my outlook has changed after what I've seen this year. What I've seen this year is 9 games. Mm-hmm. I've seen some strengths. I've seen them do some good things as a staff. They obviously have things that they need to work on. They know, I'm sure, that they're going to get dinged every time there's a mistake on special teams. Yeah, why did you why'd you let Foley walk out the door? Well, it was Ed's decision to leave. Why didn't you make him stay around? You're gonna have those things. The snapping has stabilized itself. The punting has stabilized itself. Will Mobley has been incredibly busy lately, but you want to start affecting the game on special teams in terms of blocking kicks. I mean, that's an area that needs to improve. Again, you need some backs. They're going after some backs in this recruiting class. I don't think they're moving things in a direction where you say, oof, I don't know if this was the right hire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we'd be foolish to say that. Again, I'm sure there's some moments they'd love to have back, the Buffalo game being the most notable one, I would say. But otherwise, they got beat by a better team against UCF. They got beat by a better team against SMU. Neither one of those programs have been flukes, but I don't know. Again, we've talked about how bad our predictions have been or how average our predictions have been, but nothing has really totally surprised me here.
And Kyle made a good point a while back that it seems like whenever there's a big issue, the next week it kind of gets solved, or parts of the special teams kind of get solved. Different wide receiving issues, drops, they get solved. That could be a sign of just good coaching, and it's just so early that it's hard to really evaluate it fairly.
I think too, and who knows? Colin made a great point. I think Rod's been very honest and forthright, about as honest and forthright with the media as he can be. We all know that coaches are going to withhold certain stuff from us. Mm-hmm. I would too. Mm-hmm. But, I would imagine that something's going on there with Isaiah, whether he said something. Again, this is just speculation. But now, again, as I said, if he goes out there, catches 6 or 7 balls, has a real good game, then kind of have to tip your cap to the staff and say, hey, whatever you did to push him or motivate him, it must have worked, unless he truly was hurt. But typically Rod has been the type, he's banged up, may not play this week, he's banged up, but we love his effort, love what he's doing. I don't know that you suddenly go, well, there's a lot of competition in that room.
Right.
There is, but not everybody, and I'm not sure. I mean, Isaiah Wright may have played himself out of draft consideration. We'll see. I have no idea. As Colin said, it depends on pro day and if he gets a combine invite and all that stuff. But my long-winded point here is, if he goes out and has a great game this Saturday, then you have to attribute some of that to good coaching and saying they press the right buttons to say, hey, whatever you got to change up, and we'll get you back on the field. So we shall see. Next question comes from the message board from the screen name is S. Kucher. This is Steve Kucher. I know it's early, and I'm excited for the season, talking about basketball. Looking into the future, give me the projected starting lineup in November 2021. This is for basketball. And then he says, Glenside for life, Mr. Gauss.
Mr. Gauss is not here.
No.
I wish I didn't know about this question. I would have prepared more.
Yeah, I'm sorry. This did not make it onto the script. My apologies, Steve, but we are answering it.
You're good.
Starting lineup for 2021.
So you got Josh Pierre-Louis, I think, starting at the point. Yep. You have Nate Pierre-Louis out there. Damian Dunn, I would assume, is starting. Mm-hmm. You probably, hopefully, you see a lot from Justin Hamilton that he's really earned a spot as the big in the starting lineup. I would imagine he's out there. JP Mormon most likely, and then rotation still. I mean, I don't know what you think, but I'd have to. There's so much that has to go on this season to kind of get a better idea. But I'd imagine that Josh gets in the starting lineup. I'd imagine that Damian Dunn gets the starting lineup, and maybe it's JP that gets ousted if anything.
I think and again, it depends on whether, like John Chaney used to say this, I want to go with a bigger image to start the game. If Aaron wants to do that, then Justin Hamilton stays in the starting lineup. Then I think your starting lineup is Nate, Josh, JP, Justin Hamilton, and who am I leaving out here? Nate Pierre-Louis, Josh Pierre-Louis, JP Mormon, Justin Hamilton, and
I mean Quentin's the one who's graduating.
Quentin's graduating. I could see Damian Dunn being in there again. Now, granted, guy's not played a game yet, but I think they seem pretty high on him, unless they want to bring him along. Again, who knows what the future is for Damian Dunn this season. I could also see him starting Dre Perry just as to have a veteran guy on the floor.
Did you say Jake Forrester?
I don't know if they would start, Jake right away. Again, it is so early, and Steve's acknowledging that. I think, I think, not to get too far off topic, I think Dre is a bright spot from Saturday. Again, Definitely. It's coming against a Morgan State used to have a decent program. They're not great this year, but I think you saw Dre Perry start to flourish. I mean, he hustles on defense. He scored in transition.
And he has those games where he just knocks down threes. And that's
he did
a small stretch there that really made a difference in the game.
My early prediction would be Nate Pierre-Louis, Josh Pierre-Louis, J.P. Mormon, Dre Perry, and Justin Hamilton.
Cool.
With Jake Forrester coming off the bench, Damian Dunn coming off the bench, Monty Scott coming off the bench,
Ty Strickland coming off the bench,
Jaleel White coming off the bench.
I think it's a great point, too, that if Forster doesn't play this year, that he most likely won't be starting for the first week. You have to work him in a little bit.
Yeah. Next question. This is a Graham Foley-centric question from Twitter. @OffTheHook3. With Ed Foley now at Baylor, will Graham Foley enter the transfer portal?
Obviously, I miss my grandfather so much. He's been in Baylor. No, I'm just kidding. I have no relation to Ed Foley. It took me a second to figure out why I was getting singled out here, and I was like, oh, right, Foley. I've kind of totally gotten rid of that association in my mind. Right. No, I will not be entering the transfer portal. My time here is almost up in the spring. I will be leaving Temple University if all goes well class-wise. So, no, I'm going to stick it out here and graduate. I don't really like Texas much. I don't think I'd fit in much there. Unless it was like a bigger city like Dallas, but I don't want to think about living in Dallas. I just feel like Waco, Texas is not for me. I'm gonna stick on North Broad.
There we go. Graham's not going anywhere other than along to the next step of his career. Got a couple of late mailbag questions in for Colin that we didn't get a chance to ask or answer it already. JHG722, one of our loyal listeners and readers, had said, I'd love to hear Colin's thoughts on the XFL process / experience for him so far. We talked about that. Green Street Owl, the division race, what are the realistic chances? Graham answered that in great detail, which would be really interesting. As for hoops, 2 fugly games against what will probably be 2 bad teams. What are your biggest concern? What are your biggest concerns after a small sample size or 2 games? Kind of talked about that already. I mean, shooting and
I think the biggest one is shooting. I mean,
yeah,
for me, I think if they had a lot of those jump shots that they were taking, they blow out Morgan State. Like, there were opportunities to pull away, and it was just missed shots and a lot of bricks.
Yeah, my other concern would be shooting is the one that anybody could point out. My other biggest concern would be is Quentin Rose just going to find any level of consistency? Right. Now, again, I mean, he's had stretches. I think he's been. I don't want to hammer him on this too much yet because I think everybody in this team and this program is still trying to figure out how to pick their moments, and I think that's a pleasant problem for them to have. I mean, early on against Drexel, he goes in and posterizes someone and decides, I'm going to go impose my will, and he can do it. Mm-hmm. So him finding consistency, I mean, if Quentin Rose scores 10 or 12 in a game but has 5 rebounds, 4 assists, doesn't turn it over, I'm fine with that. I think Aaron McKee would be fine with that. But, I mean, he's got the talent to do it, but we'll see. It's so early. It's so early. But, again, I mean, every game obviously counts, and it would really mean a lot to the program. Again, if in a couple weeks you go down and do I think it'll happen based off the way they've been playing? No. But what if you do go down to Orlando? You're playing a good Maryland team. We talked about this before. Maybe a steal game down there where you maybe only have several hundred or a couple thousand people watching that game on a Thanksgiving morning. You can stick that feather in your cap. As they're currently playing right now, I don't necessarily see it, but again, talk to me after Saturday. Talk to me after their next couple games. But it starts with shooting, and then again, maybe for me, does Quentin Rose find some level of consistency? For me, that would be, all right, if you're not shooting it well in this game, did you take care of the ball? Did you make did you play the passing lanes well? Did you not get beat on defense? I think if that rounds into form, I think they should be okay. But those would be my 2.
It's really just his efficiency that's the problem.
Sure,
I think he just has
absolutely.
to work on that.
Didn't get to this one, and I apologize from Rockland out. For Colin, what would it take for this coaching staff to persuade a recruit of your caliber to come to Temple instead of playing at a school like Florida or Clemson? What we will try to get that to him next time. And he says best wishes for success in the XFL. So sorry we didn't get to that one, Rockland Al. Appreciate the question. This one from the message board from 18Al1. Not sure if this will get again in time, but care to comment on the hilarity that ensued on the on-campus stadium thread? He's talking about our message board. Will be some quality content for the Scoop. do appreciate the question. It was a long rambling thread about the where an off campus stadium or on campus stadium would be. People were talking about Ambler. I get the people were getting itchy for stadium news. I got nothing for you.
Nothing on my.
We love our subscribers and all the hilarity that ensues, but don't have too much to contribute there.
And we stick by the point too that we brought up on one of the former pods, that if there is a stadium, it's got to be on campus. So there's no point, basically. I don't think an Ambler stadium fixes anything besides the price.
No, I mean it's beautiful out there, but I don't know. I mean, the biggest issue to me seems to be when you talk to students, like, well, they want to be able to walk out, let their feet hit the ground, and just walk over to the game. But but yeah, nothing new to report there. I'm looking around here on the message board just to make sure we didn't miss anything else. We did get a question here from Moose Jake 008. Tulane is a high scoring team. Will you be ready for their high flying offensive scheme? And I replied and said, by you, do you mean Temple? Don't believe you ever got back to me.
We know John won't be ready because he will not be there.
I will not be there, so I will not be ready. Even if I was there, I would not be ready to compete with Division I athletes. But I mean, to get to the point that he was talking about, I do think Temple will be ready. I do think I just think we talked about this before. I think they're going to respond. I'm encouraged again by what I saw out of Audley Isaacs. Again, if you're going to be without Isaiah Graham Mobley, and you're obviously really encouraged by what you saw from that defensive line, and they got 9 sacks against a quarterback that could move.
Right.
And so this is, and I think, I think they're facing a better quarterback this week. Obviously, in Justin McMillan, who's had a really nice season, but Quincy Roche is playing really well. Maj is playing well. Dean Levine's playing well. That line's just getting a lot of movement there, and this is really what you wanted to see. As Colin mentioned earlier in the show, they can, Jeff Knowles is running some, and Walter Stewart are running line changes out in hockey, but
right.
You've got some good depth when you can do that on defense.
And they've handled dual threat quarterbacks all season. That's something they
have.
handle.
Let's take a look at Pat Egan's question here.
I like this question.
Yeah, I guess he's referring to you and Kyle here. Look, I want those two to hash it out because poor Graham gets bullied, but most of his food takes are spot on. So I guess Pat's a picky eater too.
I'm not a picky eater. I just think stuffing is not.
I think
good.
you're a picky eater, but we've talked about food, and you'd be like, I like this, I don't like that. I like wings. What's your take on wings again?
That's it though. My only two weird food takes, and I acknowledge they're weird, is that I don't like stuffing and I don't like buffalo wings because I don't like hot sauce. So I don't like buffalo sauce.
I don't think those are your only two weird food takes.
I mean, if you can think of another one, let me know. But
can you think of some and just run them by? Not that I should be like the ombudsman for.
Sure. No, I mean, I think we disagree on our Philly style pizza take, but that's just pizza. Any pizza's still good. I'm with you on that.
No comment.
I don't like mayonnaise, but I think a lot of people, that's not totally uncommon. And I don't like mustard. I just don't like many condiments, to be honest.
I think that's picky.
I don't think it's picky because it's like it's not like they're on everything. I don't have to go through, and I won't like be annoying about it. If there's mayonnaise on my sandwich, I'll scrape it off. It's not a big deal. I'm not gonna burn the place down. Meanwhile, my good friend Dan Wilson Buzz will make sure he gets
two Buzz references on this.
Two
podcast.
Buzz references. It's a big Buzz show. As he's texting me right now, he will go to.
Did he tell you what his mom did this week
with Brandon Mack?
No.
Never mind.
Would love to hear about that. We were talking about Dan Wilson. He's a Temple student, works at WHIP. He has a bright future ahead of him. Very nice guy. Very good student reporter here at Temple. I guess his mom was on campus, and Dan, we've talked about this before. Dan grew up in Lower Merion, maybe 5 minutes down the road from where my wife and I live. We're in Howardtown, but closer to the Lower Merion side of things. And so I've been able to chat him up over the past couple years, but I haven't met his family. And I'm walking over to the tech center for something, and I see Dan, and I see this woman with who I'm assuming is his mom. And does he have a brother?
He does, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So they see me.
Oh, I did hear
his
about
mom
this.
waves and says, "Hi, nice to see you. Thanks again for yesterday." And I was like, "All right." And I just
You've never seen this woman before.
End of a work day. I'm like, she obviously thought I was somebody else.
She thought you were Matt Fine.
Yes, immediately. Not long after, Dan texts me. He goes, "So you're probably wondering what the hell happened there." Matt Fine, one of my colleagues at Temple, former Comcast Sportsnet producer, teaches on the TV side of things at Temple, and has helped us plan the sports zone that we do every year. So I guess he got us mixed up. But I was like, yes, I was wondering what the hell was going on because I've never met her before, but I'm sure she's a fine woman.
That was so funny. Yeah, she's actually really funny. She had some good opinions on our guy Robbie Anderson. We were talking about him a while back. But also she went up and talked to Brandon Mack when he was waiting for food the other day and said like, "Oh, do you play football?" Because Buzz was like, "Oh, yeah, it's Brandon Mack. He's on the football team," and she just had a conversation with him, and it was really funny.
Oh, that's good.
He was like, "Oh, wow, like someone who's not my age like knows who I am. It's amazing."
That's pretty cool. So yeah, getting back to Pat wants to see you and Kyle fight it out. So I guess Pat is more Graham Foley than he is Kyle Gauss when it comes to food. Then he says here, Kyle becomes O'Doyle from Billy Madison, and I think Graham could take him.
I think he's absolutely correct.
Also, name the future NFL players on this roster. Let's play the long game, Johnny. Let's get wild. That's what Pat says.
But to recap, I only have a couple weird food takes.
I
think
it.
overall,
see, you are.
I defend
You're
this.
picky because you can't let it go. You're like, but
because you guys keep bringing it up.
Let me come back to this.
It's because you guys keep bringing it up. I would move on. I live my life normally without even knowing I was picky. Either.
No stuffing.
Yeah.
If you have a sandwich with mayonnaise, you scrape the mayonnaise off.
Yeah. I just asked for no mayonnaise. My point was, Buzz will go to Chick-fil-A and ask for no butter and no pickles and get that special sandwich, which takes forever. I don't care about that. If I don't want the pickles, I'll take it off. But like, yeah.
What you go into an Italian food restaurant?
Mm-hmm.
Are you like comfortable ordering anything off the menu, or are you just like, I don't like this, I don't like that?
No, I'm comfortable just about with anything. I think my favorite is like a fettuccine Alfredo with chicken in or something like that. Like, I have favorites, but I think at an Italian restaurant you could hand me just about anything as long. I don't like too much cheese. That might be another weird thing. So nothing that's too cheese based. It's crazy cheese, but like overall I can deal with anything. Lasagna is not my favorite because of how much cheese is in it, but I do like the pasta. I like the sauce. I like the bread. I like the meat. Everything.
Yeah. Okay. All right. But Thanksgiving,
it's just
we've got another week. We got another at least another show before Thanksgiving.
We
right?
do.
So we'll
break it down fully.
Yeah, we'll save that, and then I'm sure we'll get criticized for too much banter.
We might.
Yeah. But
we'll mark the banter times.
Yes.
And the timestamps.
Yes. Exactly. Can't please everybody. Next question again. Next part of Pat's question that we were going to answer was again. Let's take a look at who are the NFL players on this roster. I mean, I think I'm just going down the line here. I mean, I think I don't know. I'm not an NFL personnel guy. I think Quincy Roche has played his way into the league. I mean, he's another example of, again, we've talked about this over and over again ad nauseum. They're not going to get 4- and 5-star recruits all the time. They're never getting 5-star recruits. They've gotten a couple of 4-star recruits, and you have one on the roster right now, Karamo Diabate. With all fairness to Karamo Diabate, we're not talking about him as an NFL player, but Quincy Roche, I think Brandon Mack gets into the NFL. I don't know what his future looks like in terms of where he gets drafted, if he gets drafted. I just think he's got NFL size. I think it was one play, but again, the way he tracked the ball over UCF was impressive. I'm just looking down the roster. Matt Hennessy obviously gets drafted. The thing that'll be interesting for him this year is making the decision of like, does he play another year or say I already have my college degree. Chappelle Russell gets a shot. I'm sure his knee will be dissected, although he's remained healthy, but he's had 2 ACL injuries.
Sean Bradley.
Yeah. Again, I mean, it'll all depend. I mean, these guys, whether they go to the Senior Bowl, it's going to be a busy pro day this year. Randall Jones probably, I guess, comes back. I don't know if you talk about him as an NFL player, but Quincy Roche definitely.
And I could also still see Isaiah Wright just because of the raw talent. Maybe become like a Robbie Anderson type where he's good at Temple. He never breaks out the way you expect him to, and then he goes to the NFL and he finds his footing. I could see that with him.
I like Isaiah. I know we've been a little critical of him on the show just because, as of this week, because we don't know what's going on, if he said something to tick off the coaches or whatever. But I agree with Colin. I don't even think his best attribute is, 4.5's fast.
Right.
He's not as fast as Robbie Anderson. Robbie Anderson has better straight line speed. Isaiah is built a little tougher. I think with Isaiah, it's his elusiveness and stuff like that. What worries me about Isaiah right now is just like you should be entering. This is a senior season where, you had an offensive coordinator. Again, we're not sitting here with Mike Yuremevich, but you had an offensive coordinator who said, yeah, I'd be stupid not to get him the ball 10 or 12 times a game. Is this on Mike Yuremevich? Is this on Isaiah Wright? But you had and his numbers are still pretty good, but we don't know what's going on with the blocking in front of him, but he hasn't sprung any returns, didn't play a single snap on offense. Is he ready for the NFL? Is he ready for the grind of it? And again, I like him. He's always been a real nice guy to me, but we'll see. I think if you would put a gun to my head right now, does he get in as a guy who's drafted? Does he get in as an undrafted rookie free agent? I think he's got to have a few more consistent games to get out of the undrafted rookie free agent realm. But again, we'll see how it goes. We'll have some people on as it gets closer to the draft. Some other names. Kyle told me to apply the brakes when I said this. I still think Ifan Maje is the next great defensive tackle to come out of this program. Just the way he moves. He's got that low center of gravity, but he's athletic. He's really tough. Has made a big impact at defensive tackle. I still think Dan Archibong's got a shot. He hasn't really, not that statistically that I was expecting a monster year out of him. He could be one of those guys where you talk to a scout and they would say, I love him. He's 6'6", 300. We could put him outside. We could keep him inside. We'll see there. He's a redshirt junior. I think he's got a shot, but Ifan Maje sticks out. I think it's way too early on Ramon Davis. He's a freshman. I understand he's put up some numbers. A lot of college backs put up great numbers and never get into the NFL. So we'll have to see how things go there. Harrison Hand, what do you think?
I think going into the season, I had even first 3 games into the season, I would say absolutely yes. I think I'm kind of cooled on him recently, but I still think he has potential. He's got a lot of talent. And he still has another year under his, he can spend at Temple to work on his game. So I still think I would trend positively toward him getting drafted, or at least making a roster. But you definitely need to see a little bit more from him, especially just with speed and keeping up with these fast wide receivers. He's got the physicality. He can make plays on the ball, but he's really just got to be faster in keeping with these receivers. He struggled against SMU and a little bit against UCF in that kind of regard.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the physical ability's there. We'll see how things go for him the rest of the season. I think Jovan Fair gets into somebody's camp, 6'2", 315 as a guard. He's had a real solid career. Again, does he get drafted? I don't know. Playing as Pat said, playing the long game here. I don't know. Maybe a year or two we'll be having a conversation about, is Adam Klein draftable? Is Isaac Moore draftable? I think they've both shown flashes. They're both true sophomores. They've had their ups. They've had their downs.
Speaking with sophomores, maybe even Christian Braswell's shown a little bit too.
Yeah, he's been really tough. I'm a big Chris Banks fan. I
Sure.
think he has, as a redshirt freshman, he's just passed the eye test this year. They have been able to really rotate in a lot of guys on the defensive line. Really seems to make the most of his opportunities. I think he's had a real nice redshirt freshman year. Oh boy, are we leaving anybody else out here? Benny Walls. Let's see how he plays if he comes back Saturday. Not a burner at safety, but he's a real tough player. Again, for so many of these guys, the good thing for Temple is they have a reputation now of putting a lot of guys into the NFL, so they will be seen at Pro Day. Michael Dogby, I think, should have gotten a combine invite, didn't get a combine invite. Played well at Pro Day, showed out well at Pro Day. Sure, he would have loved to have gotten drafted earlier than he did, but he's a 7th-round draft pick, gets into the league.
Still draft.
Yeah. Gosh, who else? Jagger Gardner, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see the trajectory of a guy like Jaden Blue. If he keeps putting up numbers. How do things go for him? I'm sure people would want to know Anthony Russo. Does he get into somebody's camp? Maybe.
And also another guy with a whole other year. But it
Sure.
just doesn't seem like under this offense he's doing a lot differently. I think, Colin Thompson used the word game manager for the USF game, and you're seeing a lot of that this
He's
season.
gone from a guy, again, granted different coach, but I mean, he's put up he's put up numbers. I mean, he went, drive for drive last year down in Orlando against a really, really good UCF game. So it's not like he's been a game manager the whole time. I mean, with Anthony, the big thing is going to have to be, he's going to have to show coaches that he has gotten past every quarterback throws picks, every single one of them out there. Anthony has to show growth over several weeks at a time. You've tried forcing that tight throw in there, and it burns you a little bit. That's the corner that I think he has to turn there. I think anybody could point that out. Mention the linebackers. Would love to see Chappelle Russell get a shot, but again, I think his, all these guys get picked apart, but he stayed healthy after the 2 surgeries. Anybody else we're leaving out here? I mean, we covered a good portion of the roster there. We'll see, but love the question, Pat. Appreciate it.
Definitely a lot of possibilities.
Yes. So that will do it for this week. Again, big thanks to Colin Thompson for spending as much time as he did with us. And thank you all for listening.
Go follow those accounts. And
yes,
get in
follow
that
those
ticket.
accounts for the ticket giveaway. Don't forget about that. And we will talk to you next week.